morning. You are watching Beyond Headlines on Freedom Square TV. We are reaching you from our Enugu studios. Of course, Enugu is in the southeast part of Nigeria. Africa today sits at a crossroads. On one hand, more than 30 years since the third wave of democratization swept across the continent in the early 1990s, multi-party systems and elections had become the norm rather than the exception. On the other hand, the return of military coup, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon, authoritarian backsliding, and fragile state institutions reveal that democracy has yet to fully deliver social order, peace, and of course, inclusive development. The paradox is clear. Africans want democracy, but also crave stability. When democracy fails to guarantee order, some citizens sadly welcome strong men or military regimes as alternatives. Across the continent, nations are caught between the need for stability and aspiration for democratic governance. Coups have resurfaced in West Africa. Elections are often marred by irregularities, and yet the cry for freedom, good governance, and accountability is growing louder among the people, especially the youth. Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most pressing debates shaping Africa's present and future: social order and democracy in Africa. Issues, challenges, and prospects. To help us unpack this complex subject, we have in the studio this morning a respected public affairs analyst and governance expert. He is the Director for Democratic Futures in Africa at the Open Society Foundations in Nairobi. With over 26 years of experience in peace, governance, and security, he has led major initiatives for the African Union, ECOWAS, and the United Nations, especially in mediation and early warning systems. He is the first Deputy President and Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators, Nigeria. The former Executive Director of Accra-based West African Network for Peace Building, WANEP. A respected scholar and practitioner, he is widely recognized as one of Africa's foremost voices on democratic governance and peace building. He is Chukwuemeka B, PhD. He teaches peace practice at the Institute of Peace, Conflict and Development Studies, ISUT, and as well as Kofi Annan Training Center and West African Peace Building Institute. Of course, he has several journals, articles, and books to his credit. So join me to welcome Dr. Chukwuemeka.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome to Beyond Headlines. Let's shoot straight. Let's begin by clarifying terms. And that to speak, what do we mean when we talk about social order in the African political space? And how does it intersect with democracy?
I think Africa is going through a very interesting but yet convoluted period in its history. Like you said in the opening, on one hand, we can confidently celebrate democracy as the best form of governance. But on the other hand, social order has become a deep mirage. And I always say, in my few months with the Open Society Foundation, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned about democracy is that democracy is like a relay race. Those who pursue democracy are slow, and yet they will win the race. The authoritarians also run the race much quicker, faster, but end up losing the race. So what do I mean? I've argued, when I wear the cap of a political scientist, my first argument is that we don't have African states. We have states in Africa. Why? None of the states in Africa developed organically. Even if you want to use the example of Uganda, where we had a semblance you can still argue that that's not an African state. Those who designed African states following the end, in quotes, of colonial era, they did not design it for African states to succeed. And if you see what is happening now, even the welcoming of if I use the term you used, the welcoming of the strongmen or military, it's not necessarily that citizens went on the streets to accept and welcome the military. For them, it is the end of a hopeless situation and what they thought would be a renewed hope. So it doesn't matter, even if it was insurgents or Boko Haram that took over government, they would have still celebrated it. And that's why a country like Burkina Faso, even when they chased away Blaise Compaoré and the citizens organized and all of that, when they were still not getting good governance, they did the same thing again. So the danger for social order in Africa is that nobody knows where this kind of social movement is getting to, because they've become the alternative. In a situation where the state has failed, state institutions are now captured. The parliament cannot speak against the executive. The judiciary is in the pocket of the executives. So all you see now is an interesting momentum that the youths have taken over. And that's what I refer to as the youth quake in Africa.
The youth quake in Africa. Many think that actually that democracy is struggling and to deliver social order in many African states. Is that a correct assessment?
It is. From Kenya to Nigeria to South Africa, where they still, irrespective of how old ANC has been, they have lost what it takes to control the majority in the parliament. And therefore, they had to go for a government of national unity. How united are they under the ideology of ANC? Look at what has happened in Burkina Faso. Look at Niger. Look at Mali. Look at Gabon. So those who still think that the youths are docile, they're on the wrong side of history. And why do I say this? We are witnessing for the first time in social movements an intergenerational, intersectional, detribalized, beyond party affiliations, beyond parochial givings, to what you can now see as a quick. If you look at what has happened in Kenya, what has happened in Senegal, what has happened in Nigeria and South Africa, there's an element that people fail to understand. These people were not organizing around manipulation of elections. They are organizing around economic justice. And they are saying it is high time you cannot determine what democracy should deliver for us. This is our template of what democracy should deliver for us. And if you fail to adhere to this, we will make your order disordered.
And they're doing that in many countries.
Yes.
Well, many still argue and have argued and have continued to argue that sometimes order has been used as an excuse for authoritarian rule. Do you think Africa is in danger of sacrificing freedom for stability?
When the states fail to deliver human security, they go for state security, the hardcore. Look at the Scandinavian countries. Their investment has been on citizens' welfare. And their ideology is that once you deliver on citizens' welfare, there will be no need to militarize the society. Look at the expenditure, African expenditure on military hardwares. And compare that to education, compare that to infrastructure. Can you imagine that how many years after the new wave of democratization, no African state today can boast of 24 hours light? No. Not South Africa, not anywhere can say, not Ghana that used to. Because their infrastructure thinking was for that day. Look at the congestions of our roads. Look at our urban cities. And don't forget that in this era of authoritarianism and the liberalism, what has also happened is that there is a huge surge from the rural communities to the urban cities. Where do we have the minerals? The rural communities. Those are the places that are not developed. Those are the places where the conflicts are happening. When they move away, then we begin to get illegal mining. So the critical minerals in Africa today now have nexus between it and outcome of politics and policies. So they do illegal mining, whether it's in Zamfara or in Ghana, they do illegal mining. That money finds its way to the outcomes of elections and the kind of policy and politics that we play in Africa. And that's a dangerous moment for Africa. Because if you're looking even at the Sahel now, you will notice a trend. New friends are being formed. New foes are being created. French is no longer the darling. Russia is becoming the darling of many African countries with their consequences. So for me, it is not just neocolonialism. It is also an era of scramble and partition for African resources. Everybody's now carving sphere of influence. We don't have the presence of the government, but your economy is in our pocket. Can you believe?
And that's why you see the struggle between the West and China and Russia in the BRICS. I think the hold that Europe and America have on African continents are winning by the day. How much danger does that pose?
It's a big threat. In a discussion platform that I had with some of my colleagues at the Open Society Foundation, they did say that Russia is going to provide, that America is coming back to Niger. And they are saying that this time around is not aid, it is business. But that they will help Niger wipe away insurgency. And I said, I hope they do not wipe away physical insurgency and now create the platform for critical minerals insurgency.
That sounds futuristic.
Nothing is free. Nothing is free, even in Freetown.
You never had a lunch free.
No.
Okay. The Nigerian Constitution provides somehow that the primary purpose of government is for the security and welfare of the citizens. It would appear this section of the Constitution is quite elusive in Nigeria. Is that a fair assessment?
It's not just in Nigeria. It's becoming an African thing. President Ruto is using all means to subdue citizens' dissenting voices. The more he tries to do it, the more their voices get louder. Look at what happened with End SARS, End Bad Governance in Nigeria. Look at the surge. So, the social contract, and it's only in Africa that I see the employee determine the terms of reference. So our politicians determine what is in the social contract through their manifesto and give us an assessment of themselves. So they set the exam, mark themselves and score themselves. They do not have the platform through which citizens can engage and assess the government. What you hear is ministers saying we have even surpassed our expectations, not the citizens. So this time around, the citizens are now interrogating that social contract.
Yes, because I took time to study, well, maybe if I use Nigeria as an example, electioneering process in Nigeria. Quite an empty exercise. The people who are running for elections say nothing. They promise nothing, and they deliver nothing. Contrast this with developed climes, where a candidate will go to niche environments to discuss issues. I recall when Trump ran for the first time, he had to visit the Parenthood Federation to talk about abortion and things like that. And I also saw Mrs. Clinton then go talk about it. So they come out a niche, a political niche, and they go to the veterans to talk about their welfare. But in Africa, and particularly Nigeria, a presidential candidate will come to Enugu, for example, and speak to the whole of Southeast in 30 minutes and say nothing. When they argue what we have, somebody sat on exactly where you are sitting and said there's no democracy in Africa. There's no democracy in Nigeria.
If you put the template or the principles of democracy, we are far from it. You'll say 30 minutes for a politician to speak, sometimes less than that, sometimes 5 minutes, because by the time the foot soldiers have finished singing praises of him or her, they are already telling you time up.
He has another place to go.
Yes.
So
he's the one that invites people. He or she is the one that comes late. He or she is the first to leave and leave you stranded. So it is a favor to them that they're even visiting. We have had presidential candidates that did not even tour the entire states in Nigeria, and yet they were hoping for results. So this is it. In Africa, I think that the political elites for so long have taken the electorates and the citizens for granted. What they do, because they are cashing in on dysfunctional systems, and then, of course, state capture. They cash in on that. Money politics is everywhere in Africa. It doesn't matter the source of the money. It's only in our climb that a citizen will lose election in his home state, rejected by his home state, rejected by the seat of power, and become president.
And sometimes become governor.
Sometimes become governor.
Senator.
People have lost their word and they still win elections. Meanwhile, the word is saying we know him or her. And then the person imposes him or herself on the Nigerian citizens. So if they are not taking citizens for granted, they should engage in a new form of campaign. Town hall meetings, professional associations, artisans, the who is who and the who is not. That's the only way they will show us that indeed they understand the power of the electorate. And you see, the analogy I always give is, if somebody is on the ground, lying flat on the ground, and someone else is pressing the person with his or her leg, another person is on the seat, also pressing the person down. What that person on the seat will do is never to allow you realize that you are more powerful. Because when you move, the two of them will fall.
Yeah.
So they know that. So they use all manner of tricks to perpetually keep that person on the ground. But I think there's a new movement across Africa that is beginning to question authoritarianism and liberalism. The values of open society in Africa has been, whether it is the rule of law, whether it is freedom of speech, you say something, this time around they don't even just jail you, you miss. That's forever.
Okay, and that takes us to the next question, and that has to speak to in what way or how do democratic principles, such as, of course, individual rights and freedoms, contribute to or challenge the existing social orders and hierarchies?
The first thing for me is that realization.
Okay.
The citizens need to realize that they have power to change systems that are not working in their favor. The second thing for me is the political will to build credible institutions, including those that are the vehicle through which power is given. And I think that if we have these two in place, then we can now beckon on regional, continental institutions, because those ones are in a state of comatose. ECOWAS is a shadow of itself. They've lost 3 of their members. And They don't seem to have what it takes to even stop what is going on in Togo, what will go on in Cote d'Ivoire, where President Ouattara, after everything that everybody contributed to ensure that power is transferred to him from former President Gbagbo, is now going for third or fourth term. And he still feels nothing will happen, subduing the rights of citizens. So when they know they've captured the parliament, what they do is to do all manner of obnoxious laws to have their way. If you compare that to what happened in Senegal, where President Macky Sall wanted to try a third term, the citizens stood their ground and said it will not happen. And that was not the first time. The former president tried it, did not work. President Macky Sall tried it, the citizens stood firm and said it will not happen. That's the power of citizens. That's the power of the electorates. So if we create that awareness and people understand their power, and by the way, the politicians are aware, and that's why they are not investing in education. When people know their rights, they begin to challenge that which is not protecting their rights. And they begin to look in the direction of what you call social contract. Nobody cares. And that's why a governor, a chairman, will do his job, and our communities contribute money and buy the person a car.
That's African hospitality.
No, it's not hospitality. It's because they have made them to understand that you don't deserve it. I'm doing you a favor. That's why the politicians will come for a campaign and say, you see this road? I am telling you I'll build it. Your job, your terms of reference is to build the road.
So you don't need to announce it.
Yes, and that's why people lose election in Africa, concede, and we say, wonderful. And we are giving the person, like, the right thing is that when you lose election, you concede. Not that you lose election and then we say, we begin to celebrate it. It is the face of democracy. Is a peace. No. That's too pedestrian.
In Nigeria, if you go back to 2023 elections, any person who witnessed that election knew something was very wrong with it. It appeared after a brief sharp, everybody went back to, and business as usual continued. How can this last long? Well, we're looking at 2027. Do you foresee where this youth week you talked about, where it will take place in 2027 in Nigeria if things don't go the normal, if things are not normal?
Senegal, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and the Sahel. Open Society is going to invest $160 million in the next 8 years to reimagine social movements.
That's interesting.
Why are we choosing that direction? We don't want to focus on democratic backsliding. We want to look at the future of democracy. And that's why I'm leading the democratic futures in Africa as an opportunity. So we are looking at existing opportunities. This social movement is a huge one. But we also understand the gap. Leadership on the streets does not translate to leadership in governance. So we understand that. We are going to invest in new form of Afrocentric leadership. The second thing is that we know that because some of these social movements don't have what it takes to sustain itself.
Yes.
So they're either taken by the state or at a point they will disperse. So we are trying to sustain them, not just as a movement, but a political alternative. And we are choosing these 4 countries because that's where we have seen the biggest opportunity to invest in. So let's see what happens between now and by the time this program is over. I can assure you that there will be new form of engagement as far as social movement is concerned. From October 30th to 1st of November, we are convening all the youth leadership from these countries who have been involved in social movement in Cape Town. And we are going to look at what are the trends of this social movement, what are the gaps. And from there, we are going to make this investment.
That looks like a very big hope. And that's what they say, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Because that will dramatically change the thought pattern.
Yes. And we have thought, you see, one of the things they told us is risk is these people are faceless, they are unorganized. If you invest money in them, you might just be creating a new monster. We understand that. But that's going to go into details.
I will go into details. Well, okay. Can a society actually achieve social order when there's significant inequality? Because of course, whether you talk about South Africa, whether you talk about Nigeria, whether you talk about any other country, of course in the Central, Sub-Saharan Africa, even in North Africa, you find that inequality is something that's paramount. Although democracy inherently actually require a more equitable social structure.
Democracy is not about equality, it's about equity.
Okay?
And for me, so long as we don't have equity, you cannot have social order. Don't forget that the humanist theory of conflict will tell you clearly that the understanding, the appreciation of availability exacerbates people's demand for more. So, and humanist theory did not say Dr. Nyoke and Dr. Eze earns the same salary. It says you cannot block Dr. Nyoke's access to that which he will use to satisfy his basic needs. Basic needs are universal. Needs are universal. Means of satisfaction may not be equal. My father used to tell me that he went to his friend's house and that they added food to meat. So little food and too much meat. But I know that as a son of two teachers, we were struggling to see meat in our food, right?
Yeah.
But nobody denied him access to satisfying that basic need of hunger.
Yes.
So the denial of a people or a society access to satisfying their basic needs is at the heart of social disorder. And it increases when people are conscious of availability.
And most often they are conscious.
Yes.
And so, how do you think that democratic processes like elections and the rule of law serve in any way as a mechanism for managing conflict and, of course, maintaining social order rather than suppressing it?
It should, but it is not. Because of the irregularities in election, because of the lies of the political elites, ordinarily, we should be looking forward to elections because it is like an assessment tool.
Yes.
We assess our leaders and give them back their mandate, or if you like, in a layman's understanding, renew their employment. If we put it in our head, we are renewing their employment. They are our employees.
It's like a recertification.
Yes. So people should be looking forward to election. But what happens in Africa? Election comes with a lot of anxiety.
Too much anxiety.
It comes with a lot of anxiety, fear, created by these political elites. And by the way, 1% of the society over the rest of us. So while election should serve as a means to create social order, because you assess your leaders, renew their employment, or sack them and employ new ones. I was just telling some people that I love the fact that Nigeria have not too young to run act as a law. And I was telling some of the lawmakers, begin to pursue too old to run.
Yeah, putting a ceiling to those who run.
Begin to pursue that. Because, look, Dr. Nyoke, if you go to a banking hall now and you see people 70 years and above with their glasses almost down and then writing on papers, you will not bank them. And that's a bank. So why hand over Nigeria to 70 years and above? A country like Nigeria. In a digital economy, in a digital era, at a time that AI is doing some jobs. Wouldn't they think that AI is spirit? Where are they, Mo Ibrahim asks, where are they leading us to? To the grave? You can't bring ancestors in a digital, so it is analog systems in a digital age.
Well, I think I can't remember exactly who, but I remember I watched, either it was the era of Reagan. Reagan was above 70 or something when he became president. And I think there was a young, dashing an American who queried the age of his opponent. And the man said he's not worried at his age, that he's worried at the age of his ideas.
Yeah, Museveni said the same thing.
Okay, worried at the age of his ideas.
Museveni said leadership is ideology, age is biology, that Africa needs ideology, not biology. Fair enough. But in comparison, we are operating at two different times.
Yeah. Okay, ethical responsibilities of citizens. What are they in upholding social order while also exercising their democratic rights and freedoms?
The citizens, as enshrined in the Constitution, have responsibility. But this is symbiotic. I do not think that citizens are not naturally going to be orderly. They are pushed by circumstances, sometimes very complex, outside their control. People go to the same market. People see what is going on. I think the greatest challenge of our time is the ability of citizens to speak and engage. That's why I said we understand the gap in the current social movement. If we don't have a new kind of culture, leadership culture in Africa, we are in trouble. And that is why even those who have led social movements, when they get into power, with that zeal, they collapse, they fail woefully. Because activism is good, but that's not leadership.
That's not leadership.
So the first thing I tell the young ones is stop Facebooking, face your book.
Say that again.
Stop Facebooking, face your book. In Facebook, you make noise. When you face your book, you can engage. It is not enough to rant on social media. What is your plan for engagement? Some of them meet these leaders with that zeal, and they throw them off balance. Some of them don't even know the normative frameworks with which they can engage.
Yeah.
You see some of the gender activists, they don't understand even what Resolution 1325 says. So what is your basis? So these politicians understand that. So we need to create that consciousness. And it's not going to be a one-day thing. This program is one of them. How can we invest in this kind of program? How can we amplify this? How can we replicate this in many places so that people can begin to engage? How can we also make sure that it is not elitist? So let people also on the streets, the market women, also come to this kind of program and give their own opinion about democracy. Because for them, democracy is about my well-being. That's democracy for them. If they go on, and that is why I've told people this. The relationship between the so-called ungoverned spaces, I don't believe they are ungoverned. My belief is that they are just governed differently by a different group.
Okay.
So the relationship between those ungoverned spaces and extremism is clear. So when you don't do what you're supposed to do as a government, it becomes difficult for the citizens to reciprocate it in a manner that creates social order.
To go on a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the will of the majority. How do they infringe on the fundamental rights of the minority groups? And how do they undermine social stability? And of course, we'll go further to interrogate the presence of strong social institutions like the media, civil society organizations, how they foster social order, accountability within a democracy. That will be our focus when we come back. We'll be back shortly.
Not everything makes it into the headlines, but we bring you the full story. Join Uchenna Cyril Anyoke, a renowned media personality and former president of the Nigerian Publishers Association, as he unpacks the real issues behind the news. From politics to public policy, economy to human rights, nothing is off limits. Expert guest, in-depth conversation, local and global perspective. New episode every week on Facebook and YouTube. Watch now on Freedom Square TV. Follow for updates and behind the scenes clips. Beyond the headlines, beyond the news.
And of course, we are still reaching you from our Enugu studios. Our guest, Chukwuemeka is a PhD, is still in the studio. Doc.
Thank you.
Okay, one basic question that is actually agitating my mind is how can democratic governments ensure that the will of the majority does not in any way infringe upon the fundamental rights of the minority groups, thereby sustaining or undermining social stability?
That's why I say that the intent of democracy is to create equity. There is a way you organize elections and access to leadership in Nigeria, for example. Some ethnic groups may never have the opportunity to lead the country.
That's very basic.
Because of, natural issues around population and all of that. The second thing is that many women may never get to power because, of course, the effect of patriarchy. So how do you create equity, not equality? I love the bill that is being pursued in the National Assembly for women's special seats.
Okay.
The percentage of women in our parliament today is abysmal, to say the least. So, and people are asking, how democratic is that? It is democratic because you're paying attention to the minority. So, we have 3 senatorial seats in Nigeria.
Are you saying women are in the minority or disadvantaged? Which one?
Not in terms of number.
Okay.
I'm saying in minority because of access to power.
Okay.
Because, of course, the patriarchal system that we practice and many other impediments. So if you create a 4th position, a 4th slot, it has not affected anybody. The 3 will be for men and women. The remaining 1 is exclusive for women. Then you increase the percentage and the voice because men, no matter how gender friendly I am, there are certain things that is better spoken about by women, not me speaking on behalf of women. The second one is, I've seen nothing wrong with the proposals people have made about regionalism in Nigeria. That's creating equity. So if you say you have 6 geopolitical zones, why don't you have a president, probably 4 vice presidents? There's nothing wrong with that. They become the first cabinet that makes decisions.
Okay.
And then you rotate. So you have the 6 people elected between themselves. A president is elected, and then it goes round. That's equity. Even if you don't want it that way, you know that when you say north and south, there are still ethnic groups that will be shortchanged.
Yeah.
So this is the way to create equity and ensure that everybody has a sense of belonging. And because people have that sense of belonging, they begin to look at the country or the society like theirs. So they cannot destroy that which is theirs. I can assure you that if the Southeast, for example, know that in the next 10 years, no other person will contest for president except Southeast, there won't be agitation for Biafra. Because what are you agitating? Why do you want to leave the whole to go and be on the path?
And when you know that sooner or later you'll be in charge,
Yes,
that thing you want to do
Exactly.
independently, you cannot do it.
exactly. So you can have whatever name you want to call it. Because and that's why I started by telling you that I don't think we have African states. We cannot copy, paste without modifying. We must pay attention to the reality of our context. It's very important. So the reality of our context is that we are not moving away from the tenets of democracy, but we are having a homegrown democracy that reflects our peculiarity.
And from that's what is lacking.
Yeah.
Okay, strong institutions. In what ways can actually the presence of strong institutions For example, the media, to which I belong, civil society, foster social order and accountability within the democracy.
If you go back to what President Obama said about Africa, he said Africans don't need strong men and women. They need strong institutions. If America did not have strong institutions, Donald Trump would not have handed over to President Biden.
But it will not, certainly not.
Good. But he understands that because even his aides, even his security aides, they said our allegiance is to the Constitution and to America, not to you. So they were looking at that time. If that time had reached before Donald Trump handed over, they will arrest him or kill him. That's what strong institutions does. People begin to develop faith in those institutions. Former chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, Afarijan, when he was there, he conducted elections that each of the political parties believed they lost the election or they won the election, and it didn't matter whether it was NPP or whether it was NDC.
They were okay with the outcome.
They were okay with the outcome. So, if you have strong judiciary, you have strong electoral commission, you have strong media. And when I say media, I'm not talking about journalists. I'm talking about people who are grounded in the tenets of media. Because what we have here, what we have now, and I'm sorry to use that word, are charlatans in various spaces. So you can read any course and you say, I'm a content creator, I'm a journalist, I'm into media. They can't even engage. So what proper media, strong media institution does is that it is no longer talking about news. It is now discussing implication of news.
Yes. And that's why we're beyond the headlines.
Exactly. So, but if you have media people who all they do is to ask you, how did this accident happen? That's nonsense.
It's pedestrian.
So if you have this kind of institutions, look at the CNN of today. Look at Bloomberg. So they all understand, even when they are biased, they are professionally biased. So we need those dissenting voices within the media space. We need strong civil society actors, not activists.
Actors.
We need those actors who now understand that civil society have moved away from protests to now engagement, proper engagement. Because most of our civil society organizations actually developed with the aim to oust the military.
Yeah, it was military driven.
So it was all human rights activism and all of that. Post-military era, you can no longer be using the same method to challenge politicians, civilians. So a new form of engagement that understand that there are rules, there are norms, there are instruments that we can use to engage. That's what strong institution. Not these people that say, I am called. Those who are called are prophets and pastors. I have the passion for civil society, but you don't even understand the area of work you're doing. I've seen a lot of people. You ask them, what is the focus of your NGO? They will go from peace and security to democracy to deliverance, even to deliver people they do.
Well, that is speaking to. I think most of. Sorry again to say that the civil society organizations, so speaking, and the people who now call content creators, are born out of the current challenges we have in many countries, especially Nigeria. A man was here and has a PhD in mass communication, and he's been teaching communications for a long time. And he was teaching what they call citizen journalism, just because of the point you raised. And so, prior to our conversation, I said, I don't know what you mean. Are you talking about citizen reporting or citizen journalism? He looked at me. He said, citizen reporting and citizen journalism are two different things. I had done a small research. I presented him with a paper on citizen journalism. He saw that for you to practice citizen journalism, you must be trained in the act of journalism. You must know what you call personal censorship. You must know what you call gatekeeping. You must know what you call agenda setting. This reporting is when you see an event in the street, you take your phone, take a picture, you post it, you comment on it. That's this reporting. They said, you mean to, I'm going to rewrite my course content. I say you have to. So you just alluded to it.
Yeah.
That what will people now refer as, oh, he's a citizen journalist? No. When you talk about a journalist, he's a trained person. You can't have a seasoned doctor.
Yeah.
Because you can perform a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you a doctor.
No.
Or is a seasoned pharmacist because you're a patent medicine dealer.
Yeah.
Even if you have been selling medicine for 20 years,
Yes.
you can never be a pharmacist.
No.
So thank you for that. I'm concerned about what are the potential tensions between democratic ideal of individual liberty and, of course, the necessity of collective action with compliance required to maintain social order. I'm really worried about that.
Yeah, we are all worried, especially if you look at current trends and dynamics. And just like I said earlier on, when citizens lose faith in state institutions, they begin to organize differently. And like I said earlier on, what is also happening in today's social movement is that they are organizing it, and you see the multiplicity of actors that are involved. The youths, the women, the market women. And again, for the first time, it is not just about the urban cities. Rural areas, peri-urban areas, and the urban centers. They are all organizing along economic justice. So what is key? What is key for me is that even when this organizing takes place, like you said, they must have an agenda. It must be planned because in most cases, even the state infiltrate them. The more they try to mobilize, the more the state tries to infiltrate them, sometimes in the form of destroying things, and then the state will use force to subdue them. Sometimes the state also buy them over. And that's why at Open Society Foundation, we are saying, no, if this momentum, if we allow it to fizzle away, then it will be difficult again to bring back that kind of movement. So what we need to do is to invest in their sustainability. On one hand, invest on their leadership skills, policy making, governance, and like I said, it must be Afrocentric. We must look at African problems and provide a kind of leadership training. And in fact, it goes beyond training. We are going to even have them do some kind of simulations over a period of time, attach them to states where they can learn proper crafts of leadership. It must be Afrocentric. We must look at, so some of those courses we are going to see in the Afrocentric leadership model. We are going to see the history, the historification of movements, what has happened to them. We are going to see, like the Aba Women Riot. That was a gender-based something. So how did it fizzle away? How come those women never got themselves into political leadership? Yeah. So we're going to dissect all that and now provide leadership alternatives. The third one is that it is also important that they begin to translate or transform these movements into political platforms with a different set of ideology, different from. Otherwise, what will happen is that if we leave them over a period of time, it takes us to populism. And that's the kind of track through which people like Donald Trump came to power.
Yes.
And you don't want that to happen.
And that's
because you can just put the most popular person on the streets in governance, and the person, and we are back to square one, if not minus.
Okay, I'm going to take you. My next question, I hope I'm right in the way I'm going to ask this question now. I'm going to base this question. I'm not sure whether you watched the development in Rivers just this last 1 week when they had local government elections. And that outcome is still a huge debate. Mm-hmm. A state that had better 100% a governor of a political party and the entire House of Assembly now had an election, and an opposition party had 20 councillors, 20 chairmen, and the ruling party, so to speak, had only 3. And so that begins to agitate my mind how different forms of social order, for example, rule-based, norm-based, influence the type of democracy that can thrive in a given society.
You see, for my sanity, sometimes I decide not to even listen to some of this nonsense.
It's important for the work you do.
That we call elections, you know. You see, and that's why ideology is everything. Political parties in Africa, they are devoid of any ideology. I have engaged people that I feel should know, and I ask them, what's the focus of your party? Then the person will say, we are progressives. Okay, what does that mean, sir? You don't know what progressive means? I say, I don't know. Explain to me. Or we are conservatives. So, and that's why there are few countries that have gone past that stage. A Ghanaian member of NPP, you kill the person before the person changes to NDC. The worst you will see is that the person says, I'm an independent candidate. They will never cross to the other political party. Never. That's how much they have built their political ideology. In Nigeria, you can sleep APC, wake up PDP, at lunch, you're ADC, and you have not resigned from Labour. So what kind of system are we practicing? So I'm not surprised about the nonsense that took place in Rivers, where people campaign against their party. So which means you believe that the opposition have a better ideology
Than their party.
and you have not left. You're still in that party, or at least you say you're still a card-carrying member. We have leaders in this country who have left their political party, joined one, returned, left, formed a new one, and things are okay. And things are okay. So I feel that the investment we should be making today in Nigeria is to standardize our political ideology and to make it difficult for people to leave their political parties to another party. That way, we'll begin to build a new kind of political ideology and political culture that can thrive over a period of time. So that when Dr. Uche and Nyoke says, I am a member of this political party, I know what you stand for, and I respect you for that. Over time, it will now translate to what citizens now judge. If this person is in APC, we know this is what we are likely going to get. So we are not just voting this person as a candidate, we are also voting the political ideology they belong to. That's the only way you can create stability. I'm not saying it is going to happen overnight, but I'm saying it is possible. And we can use our laws to already begin that process so that you have just limited option. Join this or join this. Once you join, crossing over becomes difficult.
And once you join, we know what you stand for.
Once you join, we know what you stand for. When you're campaigning, and then you begin now to develop that political ideology over a period of time and begin to sell it. So when business people are voting for you, they know they are voting for you because when community women, when market women, when artisans are voting for you, they know what you stand for and that this is part of your political ideology. I can tell you something for free. There are two countries that studied their political party manifesto. What I saw baffled me. It's the same thing. They just changed the names of the political party. And they were going around with it because they've never read it. The same wordings. The difference is that when you say NPP, I will say NDC.
But they have just
The same thing. Two political parties.
Well,
I don't know who copied from who.
Dr. Eze, I'm not too sure you will be shocked at what I'm going to say now. It's not just in political parties. I've had the fortune or the misfortune of doing a medical test. I got a report, which I read. And so somehow I met a friend who was like, they're going through the same thing. I said, oh boy, why can't I walk a stick? I'm also carrying walk a stick. He said, wow. He said, we exchanged ideas. He said, no, he did a test somewhere. He brought his test. What you said, apart from my name and his name, the report was exactly the same thing. Word for word, comma for comma, full stop for full stop. So which one is more dangerous?
We are in trouble. In fact, I would say we have been snookered. We are a snookered generation.
Okay, I think we should be drawing this to discussing. So we should be drawing this to a close. But before I do that, I want you just to look ahead and provide, if you can, some practical steps that Africa must take to reconcile social order with democracy.
Citizens mobilization. Let's mobilize our citizens.
How do we do that?
We will do that through awareness creation, through programs like this, not just here, but when we diversify, not just in terms of the language, but also in terms of the reach. Let's use Pidgin English. Let's use local languages. Let's do exactly what the politicians are doing differently. That's number one. Number two, we must focus on our laws. Our laws are crazy. The laws we have, they are mere copy-paste without modification. We need to do laws. We need to have laws that reflect our realities. And then we need to have structures that also create equity for women, boys, girls, men, and the entire society. If we engage in a whole society approach, then we'll be heading to what is a semblance of democracy. And again, we have also come to realize 2 terms is enough in Africa. 2 terms. Even Jesus Christ did not finish what he came to earth. Because when I engaged President Tanja, after he signed the protocol, he was the chair of the authority. He signed the protocol on democracy and good governance and started looking for 3rd term. I say, Your Excellency, have you forgotten? He said, my own is different. I have not finished what I came to. I say, Jesus did not. Mohammed did not. Go and rest.
Yes, and the final thing to ask you, maybe of our context, is the African youth of today. There are this hue and cry, and you even alluded it about technology. And it begins from our kids in primary, secondary school. There's this order, there's this urgency to expose them to in the internet, tablets. But I attended a function far away in China. And I had the presenter. He said he had studied Africa and developed countries in the use of the internet. Excuse me. And he came to this simple conclusion that what they are putting in Africa are smart kids who are not knowledgeable. What they are putting in Africa are smart kids who are not knowledgeable. I came home to look at it. I thought the small child can take this and play with it. But if you take this away from him, ask him a simple question about his environment, you'll be shocked that he qualifies in the group they call ignoramus.
Yeah.
What will you say about this?
No, I'm also disturbed about it because what this has done is to reduce and take away our creativity. Our creativity is gone because everything you can do, you want to write a speech today, tell AI to write it for you. Sometimes you don't even have to modify it. Just give the AI the context. I'm going to speak to Honorable Nyoko on democracy and good governance. And then he gives you what to say. Agenda for a meeting. So it's taking away that creativity. That's number one. It's taking away our humanity. The touch. I can't remember the last time I visited you. Because I can call you on phone.
Yeah.
I can send you WhatsApp.
Yes.
So it's taking away our humanity. And for me, even the future is bleak about what it's going to do. With the way the massive intervention of AI, human effort will become almost useless. I do hope that we engage the digital space and the digital era with a bit of caution.
I agree we should do that with a bit of caution. And to our viewers, of course, today's conversation reminds us that democracy in Africa is still a work in progress. Contested, fragile, but like Dr. Chukwuemeka said, full of promise. Social order cannot exist without justice, and democracy cannot thrive without the trust of the people. So what do we do? I want to thank Dr. Chukwuemeka, who actually holidaying and working in Nigeria, but found time to be part of this conversation. I want to thank him for his decisive analysis, and we thank you viewers for joining us. Until the same time tomorrow, it's goodbye, but before then, Doc,
Thank you so much.
thank you.